after the program, you can have another holiday today.
All right.
Thank you, Doris.
Okay. So thanks for coming today. And what are we going to talk about today, Liz?
Well, today we're talking about this other activity that many people do during Chinese New Year, and that is to visit a temple.
Okay. So what did we talk about yesterday, Brandon?
We talked about rituals, fun rituals, and activities, and we also talked about taboos, things you should not do during Chinese New Year.
Right. And Eloise, we also said you shouldn't hold grudges. That's not only Chinese New Year, but what else did we talk about yesterday?
Oh, we talked about the lion dances, the dragon dances.
Oh, yeah. That
how
was
fun those are to watch.
Mm-hmm. And I think you can still see those after when people start to open their shop. Then they have the firecrackers, and then they have the dances in the stores and get all the evil spirits out. There's still a lot of fun things to come.
There are some similar things that you can see between a new business and Chinese New Year.
Right. But, of course, the most exciting thing, I think, is when they get to the very end. What do we have at the very end?
The
Lantern
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 Festival.
Festival. Don't you like that part of it, Eloise?
Yes, I did. And they have gotten now so that the lanterns are so beautiful as opposed to that little candle in the... Remember when they put the candle in the milk can?
That's right. They didn't
And
have very
carried it?
much. They didn't have very much for the Lantern Festival. Kids had little candles. But they're so elaborate, and you can walk around see them in certain sections of every city. And you can even go there before the holiday. But on the holiday, they're all lit up. It's so much fun, isn't it?
Yes.
So let's get into the visiting temples and these other things that are coming ahead. So, Liz, where are we going to start today?
Well, today we will begin on page 36 in your Advanced magazine, and we will begin with the first reading, Visiting the Temple.
Visiting the temple. A few of these superstitions and rituals have a spiritual aspect to them. And all of Taiwan's temples are usually very busy during this time of year, as large numbers of people crowd into them with incense sticks to pray for good luck. Indeed, some of the major temples close their main gates before midnight on Lunar New Year's Eve, as noisy and expectant crowds gather outside. At the stroke of midnight, the doors are thrown wide open, and people surge forward in an attempt to be the first to place their incense sticks into the censer. A long-standing tradition states that the first person to do so will be blessed with good luck throughout the coming year. Although some of the Lunar New Year's magic has worn off in Taiwan because of the island's steady march toward industrialization, the festival and accompanying celebration are still unrivaled in importance.
Well, we talked about before how Chinese New Year involves a lot of beliefs and practices, and therefore we will have to talk about superstition and taboos. Now, when it comes to superstition, then it involves this idea of just, your belief, the spiritual aspects involved. And that's why a lot of people are very busy with temple activities during Chinese New Year. We see here in the first sentence, in the first paragraph here, that there are crowds of people. People crowd to the temple with incense sticks to pray for good luck. And what do we see next, Brandon?
Well, we also see that some of the major temples, they close their main gates before midnight on Lunar New Year's Eve. And there are noisy people, noisy crowds outside. They are expectant, meaning they're thinking something exciting is going to happen.
That's right. You have lots of people there waiting, maybe perhaps getting a little impatient. They're eager for something to happen. And what is it that's going to happen at the stroke of midnight, Eloise?
The doors are open and the people crowd in or surge in, it says.
Okay.
Right. That's already passed the last couple of days, and we saw a lot of that watching it on TV too, didn't we?
Yes. They are all crowding forward or surging forward, and when something surges forward, it's like waves, these people that come in. There's that expression that Chinese English humor, we say people mountain, people sea. So this is definitely the people see these waves of people coming in because they all want to be the first to put their incense sticks into the censer. Now, incense sticks, we know, it's that long thing that people burn and there's that smell coming out. And the censer would be the bowl or the pot that you stick the incense sticks into. Now, why is it that they want to be the first to do this, Brandon?
Because if you are the first to do this, according to tradition, you will be blessed with good luck throughout the coming year. So everyone wants to get up there and be the first one because they want this blessing that they think they will get.
Okay.
Right. And I think everybody that, that's involved has known this, but sometimes some of the foreigners don't know that. And I think they'll be glad to read that in our magazine, too, because a lot of people like to read through the classroom, even if they're not studying English. And they can learn some things about the culture here, can't they, Eloise?
Right.
In fact, you can take a copy of the magazine back to Iowa and tell them.
Okay.
So we do have a lot of these explanations about these practices. And we also did mention, though, here, if we move on to the next column, that a lot of the Lunar New Year's magic or those happy memories that we remember what Chinese New Year is all about has worn off here because Taiwan, all around the island, you can see that it's becoming more and more industrialized. People are going for non-traditional ways to, go about their life and their business. And so some of the traditional things kind of get put to the side.
But, I've heard people say that visit us from Singapore and other places. They say it's not like it used to be. And I think, throughout all of Southeast Asia and even Chinese people in Indonesia and Vietnam and wherever they are, I think it's not quite the same as it used to be. Don't you think so, Eloise?
Right. And I think a lot of it, I used to think they want more money, so they're going to open their stores. They're not closed those 15 days. It talks here that there's a steady march toward industrialization. I'm not sure that's the only thing that's caused the changes to come.
Well, I think it's even true, like in America, most families try to get home more for Christmas or Thanksgiving, but they don't do it as much as they used to in the old days. And so I think some of those things are changing because people travel a lot more during the year. Before, they'd never get home, and they'd try to go home for that. Now they go home on vacations and other times, so they don't always make it at that time. So I think the fact that we travel more has made it easier to see our friends and relatives, so it's not as important as it used to be. What do you think?
Correct. I agree with you.
In fact, what some people do nowadays is they would have their holiday obligations taken care of the weekend prior to the holiday. And then when the holiday finally comes around with all the extended days off from work, the whole family goes overseas somewhere to have fun.
Right. Sometimes they do things like that, go overseas together, or even see their relatives in other countries sometimes, too.
Right.
So that way you kind of get the best of both worlds. You see your family and do everything that you want to do with your family, and then you can take a vacation as well.
Mm-hmm. But even though some of these things have kind of worn off, which means they're not used as much, they're still there, and people know about them, and parents try to pass them on to their kids so they know. And I think that's true in German society and Norwegian. I know when they would go to the States, they'd have German festivals and certain things that they still try to keep them up. Don't you think so? All cultures do that.
We have a large Czech population not too far from us, and they have their big celebrations as well. So, yes,
Right.
I think that's true.
Everybody does, which is part of our countries and our culture, and it's nice to keep those things.
Right. There are certain practices that people continue to do. Perhaps the meal may not be as fancy as you remember them to be, when you were a kid, or perhaps certain things are not done with that much detail or care, but people still think it's important to do them.
And they still want to keep the hung baos.
Oh, yes, that's the most important part.
That's pretty important. We don't want to give that up, right?
That's right.
But it is interesting that things have changed, and you will find that the temples are more crowded at this time and that they're decorated up more. And, of course, because of the coming Lantern Festival, they usually have those all around the temples. So that makes it a very time of very decorations all over the place and lights and excitement, don't you think?
Yes. In fact, for a lot of foreign visitors, when you ask them kind of like what's their stereotypical concept of what Asia's all about, they think of the pointy roofs, the lanterns all around. And so going to the temple around this time of the year kind of fulfills that idea, or just it's exactly what they would imagine it to be.
And the lion dances and the things. That's kind of what they expect, right?
Yeah, it's a very festive atmosphere.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes. Okay, well, That's visiting the temple. And now we have another section to cover travel time. We've talked a little bit about how people know that this is a time to be with family. And even if you're far away, you will make an effort to get home to be with the family. So let's continue on with the next section and the final section of our reading today.
Travel time. Several days before Lunar New Year's Eve, people living far away from their families begin to prepare for their journey home. In an attempt to beat the traffic jams, many hit the road on the previous day. Those relying on public transportation will often camp out in sleeping bags at airports, train stations, and bus terminals to ensure that they get reservations for the dates they want, as tickets are usually snapped up the second they go on sale. Trains, buses, and planes are always packed. No matter how grueling the journey may turn out to be, though, all of the inconveniences are considered to be worth it once the family has gathered around the table to eat their Lunar New Year's Eve dinner, the most important meal of the year. Indeed, no matter what changes may occur over time, the notion of getting together with the family will always lie at the heart of Lunar New Year celebrations.
So several days before Lunar New Year's Eve, in other words, before Lunar New Year even begins, people who are far away from their families have to start figuring out, how on earth am I going to get home? And why is that, Brandon?
Oh, well, they want to beat the traffic because it's very crowded. So as we talked about before, you have to get your train tickets ahead of time. They might be sold out. And this can be a big headache. So people have to figure this out ahead of time.
You notice you say that many hit the road. That's kind of an interesting expression, Eloise.
Yes, that's getting in their cars and going down. We've got the cars now, where years ago there wasn't that many cars, and so it was always the public transportation. And so there would be long lines at the airport, the train station, the bus terminals, and so on.
Right, and
Well,
the people
true.
are carrying lots and lots of gifts with them. So it's not just people who are packed there. They also have their luggage and everything else, and so it just increases the inconvenience.
Right, and they did talk about people that rely on the buses and the trains. They will camp out in their sleeping bags at airports.
Yes.
Certainly be big, long lines. You'll get there early in the morning. But, you better not wait till just before. Now it's several months ahead you have to get your airplane tickets if you want to go overseas or something.
Right.
But it's a lot easier now, though, isn't it, because of the computers?
I
You
guess
can
it's
buy
a
your
little bit
tickets on
cheaper,
the
yeah.
computer rather than standing in that long line.
That's true, but
That
you have
is
to do
an
it
option.
early.
Right. And so
Yes.
what the companies do, then they would have to say you can't book until a certain day. Otherwise, things would just go
There wouldn't be
crazy.
anything. Yeah, it would be. That's true.
And they used to say you could only buy so many tickets. And
Right.
so if my family was bigger than that number I could buy, I'd have to get someone to stand in line with me, or I'd have to get in line the second time with hopes I could get the rest of my family on.
Because they had what they call the Huang Niao Piao, and those people who would buy about all these tickets up, and then they would sell them for double the money. So I have a ticket, and they'd stand on the side there. They don't
Yeah.
see that anymore much.
Actually, it's done differently. The Huang Niu Piao, well, we don't call them yellow cow tickets, but they're called scalpers.
Yeah, that's
basically, it's a form of piracy because they basically hog
have
up
a ticket.
everything.
Yeah, double
but
price.
there are other ways in which people try to figure out how to make some extra cash before Chinese New Year.
So they're still in doing that a little bit. But they're snapped up in a hurry. The minute they go on sale, there was people lined up buying their tickets, and that's still going on even nowadays.
That's
right.
right.
If you snap something up, it means you just buy it quickly, and people are waiting. Maybe they're online waiting for the second that it goes on sale, and they grab it.
That's right. When something snaps, you can imagine it's like a rubber band, snap. It's so fast and then it's gone. And so, as the saying goes in English, the early bird gets the worm. And this is a perfect example where it's good to be the early bird. And you will find yourself being a bird among many other birds lining up for
If you
tickets.
want to go on on an airplane and you hope it's not too crowded, don't go during the lunar holidays because it'll be crowded. It'll be packed. No empty seats next to you.
Right.
That's right.
Is that
In fact,
Right.
some people would try to wait till maybe day 2 to get going.
Right.
Because they will wait for the mad rush to die down. So
That's
then we
true.
moving on, we see in line 17, trains, buses, and planes are always packed. So as long as there's some kind of a public transportation vehicle that could carry anybody anywhere, it's going to be packed. And no matter how grueling the journey may turn out to be, though, people are willing to do it. Now, what is grueling, Brandon?
Grueling just means extremely difficult. So even though this is a difficult journey, people are willing to do it because they're going to be with their family.
That's right. They want to be with their family to gather around the table to eat their Lunar New Year's Eve dinner. And that's the most important part because it's almost like there's no other way. You have to be there and your family's waiting for you. You know, if you're not there, something's not quite right. And so it's worth it. Even though some people may spend 48 hours trying to make that journey, but it's worth it. They want to do it. And it's not just in certain communities. We see this happening all around the world, wherever there are Chinese people. If they can make that journey, if visa and money is not a problem, they will make that journey.
Yes, that's true. In fact, and I like the part here where it says that no matter what changes might happen or occur, the idea of getting together with the family is always the heart of the Lunar New Year celebrations. So even though we talked about dragon dances, lion dances, food, those are all exciting things, but the main thing is the feeling of being with your family. Isn't that right?
And family is so important.
It's very important.
That's right. It's the heart of Lunar New Year celebrations. It's the most important part is just being there with your family. And maybe you haven't seen them for a whole year, so it's very important that you make it again for Chinese New Year.
They have nian gao, which is that Chinese sticky cake. You remember nian gao?
Yes, I do.
Oh, they have it fried and deep fried and everything. And you could sit someplace by yourself in New York in an apartment and miss your family and eat your nian gao, but probably a few tears because you're not home. Isn't that right?
You could have your fireworks, eating your nian gao, perhaps getting some hongbao from friends, having new clothes to wear. But if you don't have the people you love with you, it's just not the same.
And I think that's the same with a lot of our holidays. I think part of it is being with our loved ones and our friends. Don't you think so?
Yes, and that was one of the things that was so special of being in Taiwan as a foreigner. We were included and part of a family so often.
And this is why people say that Chinese people are so gracious and so friendly, because they will take in foreigners. And I hope that when you're in England and America and those countries, that in the Christmas and the Thanksgiving, that you will get invited to their homes. And often they'll invite Chinese friends to their homes to share. And I think it's great when we can share our traditions with each other. So always invite a foreigner home, whatever country you're in, during the holidays. Isn't that right?
It makes the world so much smaller.
That's a good rule.
That's right. Well, we have a feature coming up, and let's find out what it's all about.
Oh, May, I have such a ferocious appetite this afternoon, and it is all your fault.
Paul, what on earth are you talking about and blaming me? You always have a ferocious appetite.
This time of year, with all these gatherings for Lunar New Year and then our holiday time away, my eating habits just get the best of me. I wish I could triumph over them.
I think you are having a good time, though, aren't you? It is a fun time for us and definitely for my family.
Yes, your mom is so busy at this time of year. Check out the errand list she gave us. May, what is she talking about that we have to pick up some couplets?
Oh, thanks for reminding me about that. It is a tradition in our family, and Mom likes to hang a few in the house. They will have blessings and auspicious words written on them.
Sounds like your mom isn't going to miss a thing to make this celebration festive. The main thing I am concerned about, though, we must give her enough time to make that sumptuous meal she makes every year. I can't wait.
I am glad that you like my mom's cooking. Perhaps the two of us can learn some techniques this year. I am sure that down the road, we will have to make this lavish meal.
For now, I'm just coming along for the ride. Food and freewheeling fun. This is all so new to me. I need to learn more about your family traditions and some of the superstitions many of the people here practice. It seems like some are still very pervasive.
It is interesting to see how some of the old ways have not worn off with my family's generation and the elderly. This is such an important holiday, and its importance is unrivaled. I guess it's a lot like Christmas in so many parts of the world.
Then we don't have a moment to lose in getting all of our plans in order for such an important time of the year. How about you camp out at our travel agent's office as tickets go on sale first thing in the morning, and we just have to snap them up.
Oh, Paul, that is a great idea.
Okay, so thank you, May, and thank you, Paul, for sharing a little bit of what it's like going through Chinese New Year, and for Paul to learn a whole bunch of new things visiting with May's family. Well, they definitely used up a lot of the vocabulary words in our lesson. And
That's
friends,
right.
I hope you were able to follow along and figure out some of those words. Now, let's do a little recap of what we've been talking about for the past 3 days. What are just some things that have really been meaningful or special for you during the past 3 days?
Well, it was interesting to me to find out about the origins. We began this article talking about the origins and the Nian monster. I did not know about that, so I was glad to learn more about that, and also just all of the traditions involved. Just this whole article kind of brings Chinese New Year alive. For me, being a foreigner, that's very helpful, and it makes me more interested in learning about this festival and this holiday.
Okay.
I think another thing that's interesting about the holiday, it's not just one day. Like we think of Thanksgiving or Christmas, and a lot of people have certain days in their countries, but I think the Chinese probably have one of the longest periods of time for a holiday. Don't you, Eloise?
Yes, it just goes on and on and on. It said here for 3 weeks. I didn't realize it was for 3 weeks. I thought of it more as that 15 days.
Right.
Then I also thought, as they were talking there, about all the work involved before the holiday actually comes, especially for the mother as she prepares the food and getting the tickets to go on to wherever you want to go.
That's true. In fact, all the preparation, not only that, but for companies that are going to have that much time off, even if you don't have that many days, everybody has almost a week off now, and they have to do a lot of work ahead of time and a lot of preparation, and so you're always getting ready way ahead of time for Chinese New Year. Then right after Chinese New Year, you have to catch up because you weren't there. Isn't that right, Liz?
That's very true. So before and after the holiday, it's equally busy and crazy. As you celebrate, getting ready to celebrate, then you celebrate, and then you have to recuperate from all the celebrating.
But I think Chinese New Year is a time that everybody seems to know about all over the world, and it's celebrated in areas they call Chinatown in different sections of New York and San Francisco and many, many cities. Mm-hmm. And I think it's something that a lot of people know about all over the world.
That's
Yes.
right. No matter where you go during this time of the year, if you were to, let's just say, if you're to visit different Chinese restaurants in different Chinatowns all around the world, you will see certain things that are similar, even though they may be in different countries. The color red is everywhere. You see couplets hanging. You see certain food items being cooked, things like that.
And what's always interesting about it is because it goes by the lunar year, so it's not like it's the same day. Like we always say Christmas is December 25th. But in Chinese New Year, it depends on when it's going to be on the lunar calendar. So it's kind of, I think, earlier this year being in January, isn't it?
That's right. It changes every year. And what's interesting, too, is that this lunar calendar is the Chinese lunar calendar. Different cultures, different countries have their own lunar calendars, and they run on it's a different system if you go from culture to culture. So sometimes when you're talking to foreigners, you may have to specify a little more. When you say lunar holiday, which culture's lunar holiday are you referring to?
Well, after this article, I'm sure all the foreigners could read it, give a copy of your magazine to them. So you want to know more about Chinese New Year? Here's something for you.
That's right. I've learned a lot from this article myself.
And the superstition and the taboos, that has been interesting.
Right. So thanks for being with us, Eloise.
My pleasure.
And next time you come back to visit Studio Classroom, you're going to be on advanced program with us.
All right.
That's good. And thank you, Liz and Brandon, and thank all of you out there for being with us these special, special days. And we still want to wish you all a very happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
恭喜恭喜。
恭喜恭喜。